Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never thought 5 days could feel like 5 years. My name's Ollie, I'm 37, and I live in a neighborhood where everyone knows your business. Or at least pretends they do. I got home that Friday evening, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. 5 days. 5 days since Clara, my wife, had walked out without a word. No goodbye, no explanation, nothing. Just gone. At first, I didn't panic. I told myself she needed space. Maybe she was visiting a friend or staying with her sister for some quiet. But as hours turned into days, and days stretched into almost a week, the silence started to claw at me. Friends called. I didn't answer most of them. I had work, bills, groceries, everything that usually keeps life moving. Yet it all felt hollow. I was moving, but I wasn't living. The text messages were ignored. Calls went straight to voicemail. Even the small things, like her leaving her coffee cup on the counter, had vanished. The home we shared felt like someone else's now, though she had been there for 12 years. We'd built a life together, a tiny world full of inside jokes, Saturday breakfasts, and late-night movie marathons. And now, it was as if she had pressed delete and walked away without a backward glance. I'd spent the last few days trying to sort through my feelings without exploding. I paced the living room, cleaned the kitchen 3 times, and even reorganized our bookshelf alphabetically, something she hated. But all the distraction in the world couldn't stop the dread that had settled in my chest. And then, just when I thought the house had finally swallowed me whole, I heard the familiar click of the front door unlocking. My heart jumped. The footsteps were light, almost teasing, moving down the hallway. I didn't need to guess who it was. Clara. She strolled into the living room like she owned the place, like she always did, and smirked. That smirk. The one that could make me furious and weak in the knees at the same time. Be grateful I even came home, she said casually, like the last 5 days were nothing more than a minor inconvenience in her schedule. Her eyes held that familiar glint, the one I'd once thought was charming, but now only made my stomach churn. I didn't say anything right away. I let her words hang in the air, heavy and suffocating. My mind raced through all the things I wanted to scream, all the betrayals I imagined during those sleepless nights. But instead, I just nodded slightly, my hands calm, my face a mask of controlled emotion. Thanks, I said slowly, deliberately, but you don't live here anymore. Her smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. I could see it, the tiniest flicker of uncertainty that hadn't been there when she left. She raised an eyebrow, amusement still playing at the edges of her lips. I reached for the yellow envelope sitting on the counter, the one I'd been holding on to since the morning. I slid it across the kitchen table, letting it thud softly in front of her. Her eyes narrowed as she looked down at it, curiosity beginning to replace the arrogance she had carried in. "What's this?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but I caught the tremor in her voice. "Just some paperwork," I said, my voice even, almost soothing. "You'll want to look inside." I thought it might clarify a few things. Clara picked up the envelope, turning it over in her hands. Her fingers hesitated for a moment before finally tearing it open. And then I saw it. The color drained from her face, her confident smirk replaced by something else entirely. Shock, confusion, maybe even fear. I stayed silent, let her unravel at her own pace. I had spent the last 5 days imagining all the scenarios, all the confrontations, all the apologies that would never come. But this reaction was better than anything I could have scripted in my head. She looked up at me then, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, as if the words that should have come couldn't find their way out. I didn't need to say anything else. I just watched, the house suddenly feeling less empty, as the power balance that had shifted so dramatically over the years finally, quietly, tilted in my favor. For the first time in 5 days I felt steady. The weight of worry, of confusion, of fear. It all lifted slightly. Not completely, of course. That would take time. But the sense of control, the clarity, the realization that I was no longer at the mercy of someone else's whims. It was intoxicating. And in that small, quiet moment, I knew something I hadn't admitted even to myself before. I was done waiting, done hoping, done letting her absence dictate my emotions. She had returned, yes, but she had walked right back into a world that no longer revolved around her. Clara's hands shook slightly as she unfolded the papers inside the envelope. Her face was pale, the smirk completely gone, replaced by a mixture of disbelief and panic. I could see her scanning the documents quickly, but the expressions on her face were more telling than anything written on the page. You did this?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, keeping my tone calm, measured. "I did what needed to be done. You've been gone for 5 days. Ignored every message, every call. And yet you show up expecting everything to stay the same. That's not how it works anymore." Her lips parted, as if she was about to argue, but no words came out. Instead, she looked down at the envelope again, as if hoping the contents might magically disappear or transform into something less final. I could see her thoughts racing. There was regret, yes, but also fear. Fear of what she had left behind. Fear of what she had assumed would remain untouched. And most importantly, fear of losing control. I don't understand," she finally whispered. "You will," I said simply. "It's all in there. I've been patient for too long. I gave you time, space, and chances more than anyone should. This is me drawing a line." Her eyes darted around the room, taking in all the subtle changes I'd made over the past 5 days. The neatness of the kitchen, the organized bookshelves, the absence of her belongings in certain spots. Everything quiet, controlled, intentional. Every little detail screamed one thing. Life moves forward with or without her. "You can't just," she started, then stopped herself. The words failed because she knew deep down I was right. I moved closer, but didn't touch her. Didn't need to. Proximity alone was enough to make her shift uncomfortably. "You're home, but this isn't your home anymore," I said. "You made that choice when you left. Now it's time for consequences. Not out of revenge, just clarity." She swallowed hard, the realization hitting her slowly, like a cold wave rolling over sand. She opened her mouth again, but I held up a hand. "No, not a word. Just look, understand, and then decide what you're going to do next. Because whatever happens, it won't be dictated by me anymore. It will be dictated by you and by reality." The silence was thick, almost suffocating. I watched as her shoulders slumped slightly, as if the weight of what she'd done over the last few years, and certainly the last 5 days, finally landed squarely on her own conscience. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I let out a soft chuckle, not mean-spirited, just factual. "It already went this far. You don't get to dictate the pace anymore. You walked out. I survived. And now, it's time you faced the truth of what that means." Clara's eyes flicked back to the envelope again. Slowly, carefully, she started reading each document, each note I had compiled. Evidence of bills she hadn't checked, important correspondence she ignored, commitments left in limbo. Every detail, every line, told a story she had refused to acknowledge. That life doesn't pause for anyone's whims. Her breathing became heavier, faster. She looked up, and for the first time in years, I didn't see the teasing, confident woman I married. I saw someone stripped of the armor she wore so effortlessly. Someone finally human, finally accountable. I didn't realize," she started, voice breaking. "You did," I said firmly. "You just refused to care until now." Her eyes filled with tears, but there was no apology, no begging. Just shock and the first taste of understanding. I didn't move closer. I didn't console her. That wasn't my job anymore. My role had shifted 5 days ago, and this was the first moment she recognized it. She set the envelope down on the counter, unable or unwilling to continue reading. What happens now?" I paused, letting the weight of my answer settle. "Now, you make your decisions. I've made mine. This house, this life, it's mine to protect. You're back in it, but you don't get to control it. You never will again. Clara blinked rapidly, trying to process. And I realized in that moment that control, true control, wasn't about anger, yelling, or dominance. It was about clarity, patience, and standing your ground when it matters most. She looked at me, lips trembling, then nodded slightly. Not a full agreement, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement, the first step of facing reality. I turned away, toward the window, and breathed in the late afternoon air. The house was quiet again, but now it wasn't empty. It was mine, and I finally felt what I hadn't for 5 days: calm, strength, and a clarity I hadn't realized I was missing. Clara stayed there, silent, holding the envelope like it was both a warning and a lesson. I didn't need to speak. My actions, my decisions, my resolve had spoken for me. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, I understood something fundamental. Sometimes, the ones who think they hold the power are the first to realize they never did. Control isn't taken, it's earned. And finally, after 5 long days of absence, she was learning that the hard way.